Welcome to the deep dive. You ever scroll through your feed and just, get that feeling of how is everyone affording that trip
Mm.
or that car? That sense that you're somehow falling behind financially, even if you're doing okay. It's a really common feeling. Today, we're going deep into why that is, looking at the sort of hidden reality behind all the apparent wealth we see online. And we're basing this deep dive on a really great article by Andrei Geek called How is Everyone Affording Life Right Now? Lots to unpack here.
Absolutely. And our goal today really is to cut through that surface level view. We want to show you the economic truths hiding behind those affluent lifestyles. And more importantly, how all of this actually affects you. We'll expose the illusion, figure out what's driving it, and then crucially, talk about a different way to think about your own financial health.
Exactly. Which brings us right to the big question. How does it seem like so many people are cruising through life financially when, for a lot of us, it feels like a real struggle just to keep up? Andre Jig kicks off his piece with this really sharp observation about the gap, right, between the Instagram vacations, the designer stuff, the perfect houses,
Mhm.
and then the actual day-to-day economic reality for most people. He says this feeling of falling short, it's everywhere.
It really is. And, it's not just a feeling. The data backs this up completely. It paints a very different picture than the online illusion.
Yeah.
I mean, the source points out 55% of millennials are living paycheck to paycheck. That's more than half.
Wow. 55%.
Yeah. And then you look at the debt numbers. Credit card debt, over $1.3 trillion. Total household debt just hit a record $18.2 trillion.
That's staggering.
It really is. And this is where that idea of phantom wealth comes in. Your net worth might technically go up on paper. Maybe your house value increases or something. But you don't feel any richer because you're constantly seeing this curated version of extreme affluence all around you.
That makes so much sense. So it's not just about the numbers in your account, it's about your perception compared to this amplified version of reality.
Exactly. It's a perception game.
Yeah.
And social media is like pouring gasoline on that fire.
Okay, so let's get into that. How specifically do platforms like Instagram or TikTok make this worse? What's the sort of psychological angle here?
Well, social media is a huge driver. The source highlights some really telling stats. Like 7 out of 10 millennials feel financial FOMO, that fear of missing out.
7 out of 10.
Yep. And it directly impacts spending. 41% of millennials admit they buy things just to keep up appearances. This leads straight into something called money dysmorphia. It's this feeling of being poorer than you actually are, purely because you're comparing your real life, your, behind-the-scenes reality, to someone else's perfectly edited, curated online illusion. The article nails it. You're comparing your reality to someone else's curated illusion.
That phrase really hits home.
It does. And platforms like TikTok amplify this even more. They found 50% of users are more likely to buy something if a creator recommends it. And look at live shopping. It's projected to be like 10, maybe 20% of all online sales by 2026. It's this constant pressure, this stream of things you should want or have.
Okay, so if people aren't really as wealthy as they seem, and the debt figures show many are struggling, where's the money coming from for these lifestyles we see? How is this illusion being funded?
Right, that's the crux of it. And the answer, overwhelmingly, is debt. But it's often sort of invisible debt. Think about credit cards first. The average APR, it's now over 24%. That's incredibly high interest.
24%. Just servicing that debt must be crushing for some people.
Absolutely. But it's not just cards. We've seen this explosion in buy now, pay later services, Klarna, Affirm, those kinds of things. The market for BNPL went from maybe $2 billion in 2021 to a projected $46 billion this year, 2024. That's huge growth.
46 billion. And what are people using that for? Is it still big ticket items?
Sometimes, but what's really concerning, and the source points this out, is people are increasingly using BNPL for essentials. Groceries, gas, things they used to just pay for.
Wow, okay, so financing everyday life.
Exactly. Which just reinforces the core message from the article. People aren't spending effortlessly, they're borrowing, often invisibly, and in ways that just aren't sustainable long term.
So that's the individual borrowing picture. What about the bigger economic climate? Things like rising interest rates, how have they played into this feeling of being squeezed?
Oh, massively. Rising interest rates have really cranked up the cost of borrowing everything, but especially big things like mortgages. Mortgage rates basically doubled, right? From around 3% back in 2020 to, well, 6 or 7%, sometimes more recently.
And what does that mean in real terms for someone trying to buy?
Well, the article gives a great example, a $500,000 home loan. That now costs about $1,200 more per month. just because of the higher rates.
An extra $1,200 a month, that's huge.
It's huge. And it pushes home ownership out of reach for so many. So more people rent for longer, which then, basic supply and demand, drives up rent prices too. It's a cycle.
So it's not just buying, it's renting and getting harder too.
Definitely. And it leads to this real sense of disillusionment with the housing market. Get this. The average age for a first-time homebuyer is now 38.
38, wow. I remember when people talked about buying in their late 20s.
Exactly. It was 28 back in the 1990s. And today, only 24% of buyers are first-timers. That's the lowest figure in 40 years.
That's a really stark statistic.
It gets worse. The number of cities where a starter home costs over $1 million, that's tripled in just 5 years.
$1 million for a starter home. It sounds almost unbelievable.
It does. And then you have institutional investors stepping in, buying up 10, sometimes 25% of homes in certain markets.
So regular people are competing with big companies for houses.
Pretty much. And all this is happening while real wages, what people actually earn after inflation, have barely budged. But home prices, they're up nearly 500% in the last 40 years. The gap is just immense.
Okay, so faced with all the social pressure, the debt, the housing costs, it can feel pretty overwhelming. How do you break free? How do you redefine success when the old markers seem so out of reach?
Well, this is where Andrei Geek offers a really powerful, almost countercultural idea. He basically says, opt out. Just get out of that race altogether.
Opt out. What does that look like?
It means redefining success. It's not about having what your neighbor appears to have. It's about something much more internal and sustainable. It's about living below your means, consistently putting money away to invest, actually learning about how money works, financial literacy, focusing on building good, solid, long-term habits instead of chasing that short-term image. There's a great quote in the piece. You get ahead not by running faster than your neighbor, but by getting out of the race completely.
I like that, getting out of the race entirely. But practically speaking, that's hard when you're surrounded by the opposite message. Are there mental tricks or exercises we can use to start shifting that mindset?
Yeah, he offers a really interesting one called the visual savings exercise. It's quite clever. You pick a luxury item you think you really want, maybe it's a watch, designer bag, whatever, and you diligently save up the exact amount needed to buy it.
Okay, so you save the cash.
Right. But here's the key.
Yeah.
Once you have the money sitting there, you don't buy the item. Instead, you take that money and you calculate what it could grow into over, say, 20 years if you have invested it instead. Think about the compound growth. It forces you to see the trade-off, not just as item versus no item, but as temporary pleasure versus long-term freedom. The insight is that real freedom often comes not from having the thing, but from not needing it, from having the option, the freedom units, as you might say, grow over time.
That's a powerful reframe. Shifting from consumption to potential freedom. It feels like a good antidote to the hopelessness this topic can sometimes bring up.
Exactly. And it's crucial to hold on to hope here. If you're listening to this, if you're engaging with these ideas, you are honestly already ahead of the curve. Remember the statistic. 56% of people can't afford a surprise $1,000 expense.
Right. More than half.
So if you're thinking about this stuff, if you're maybe trying to budget or invest even small amounts in index funds or just build better habits, you are winning. It might feel slow. It probably is slow compared to the instant gratification online, but it's real and it's sustainable. And like the article concludes, you're not behind. You're learning. You're getting ahead. And over time, that's what compounds.
That's a great place to land. This deep dive has really shown how that feeling of everyone else is doing better is often just an illusion, fueled by social media, hidden debt, and some tough economic realities. But the really empowering takeaway is that you can opt out. You can redefine what success looks like for you, focusing on genuine financial health and long-term freedom, not just keeping up appearances.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with is this. Take a moment later today and just reflect. How much of what you feel you need or want is genuinely for you, and how much is maybe just a reflection of what you've seen other people seem to have online? Think about the real freedom you could unlock by defining what enough truly means for yourself on your own terms.